The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.
Complex urban environments, such as Ontario's largest city, can be both fragile and resilient. As the city looks to recover from 2 years of pandemic, tonight we'll examine a new program that marks cultural districts and ask whether these designations actually accomplish what communities and businesses hope. Then we'll talk to the head of Canada's first independent medical school about why Nossum University remains a critical piece of Northern Ontario's healthcare future. It's Tuesday, April 12th, and that's next on The Agenda. For half a century, Toronto has been known as a city of neighborhoods. And now it's launching a program that will designate particular cultural districts in the 416. Little Jamaica and downtown's Chinatown have been identified as neighborhoods that could benefit from this program. With us now on how such designations might intersect with the city's diverse culture and identity, and as is our custom on this program, we're going to introduce our guests from furthest away to closest to our studio, starting in Mississauga, Ontario, with Chosen Wright, co-proprietor of Treasure Isle and a member of the Little Jamaica Ad Hoc Community Economic Empowerment Committee. And in the provincial capital, in the East End, Mary McDonald, senior manager in heritage planning at the City of Toronto. In Kensington Market, Jay Pitter, principal at J. Pitter Placemaking and planner in residence at the University of Waterloo. And in the downtown core, Amy Go, president of the Chinese-Canadian National Council for Social Justice. And it's great to have you four on our program tonight. Jay, start us off, because I think we need to figure out what the mission is of this new City of Toronto program for cultural district designation. What's the mission?
The mission is really to respond to local advocates in communities like Little Jamaica and Kensington Chinatown, where I live, as well as the Gay Village. And the mission really is to bring together cultural planning tools with land use planning tools to ensure that the city is a good co-steward supporting local culture and disrupting displacement.
And what does it actually mean in terms of the rubber hitting the road? Does this mean that local businesses or residents can go to the city and say, we want to be known as X, Y, and Z, now help us with that? Or what does it mean?
So we are co-creating what that means in real time. And so we know that there are some good practices. There's been tremendous research done. We're going out to speak to stakeholders right across the city, from folks who work in professional land use planning and cultural context to everyday people, because we know that culture is boundless and it emanates from communities. And so we're shaping the program in real time with people who live across the city of Toronto.
And one last follow-up. Is Toronto sort of copying some other program like this that exists in other cities already?
Well, Steve, you know I would never allow that. So no, we are not copying other cities, because we are a distinct city ourselves. But we do see that there are some really progressive models. For instance, Minneapolis has a new cultural district model that is really meeting the moment by contending with displacement and centering equity. And so we are doing the same, but we're doing it in our own way, again, together with individuals living right across the city, and bringing a vast number of city staff and city councilors together to co-create the program that is the right fit for our city.
Shame on me for thinking for even half a second that anything Jay Pitter would be involved in could be copying anybody else and not a complete original. Shame on me. Sorry, Jay. Okay, thanks for that background. Mary, let me get you into this now. I suspect there are people watching or listening to this right now who think, wait a second, this sounds a lot like, you know, the heritage designation programs that the province put in place many, many years ago that, you know, tell you what you can and can't do if you want to renovate properties or tear down properties or that kind of thing. Is this the same thing?
No, it's quite different. I mean, there is an aspect of heritage preservation or traditional conservation that might play into cultural districts. But what this program is doing, it's really responding to an important absence in the provincial legislation around what we might call intangible heritage. So it's very difficult to conserve culture, to conserve history. The legislation that's in place really puts an emphasis on buildings and landscapes and outdoors, and you can't deal with uses. So it's legislation that's really insufficient for the kind of work that Jay's describing.
Now, that's an expression I haven't heard before, intangible heritage. What do you think that means?
Well, and you have a tangible heritage, which is what we're used to, which is the solid bricks and mortar, things you can touch and see. And then you have intangible heritage, and that might be cultural practices. It might be like culture is what people create. Culture is how people think about where they are. So you might give a very special place in your history or in your personal experience to an area of the city, but it may not be represented by a building or a particular or something that you could designate or put in place. So it can be spirituality. It's all kinds of things.
All right,
May I build on Mary's answer, Steve, just very quickly?
Sure.
Intangible cultural heritage really speaks to the rituals of everyday people, the stories that define a place, the spaces that are sacred sites that we can't see on the map, traditions and celebrations, and even sites of trauma within a community. So all of those things make up the very special, intangible cultural heritage of neighborhoods. And so we are responding to those things, recognizing that they are indeed as valuable and as important as tangible heritage.
Understood. Chosen Wright, let me get you into this here because you're part of this Little Jamaica ad hoc committee that's looking into being a part of this. Let me get your initial reaction to it. What do you think?
We like the idea. Going forward, the businesses on Eglinton would definitely love to see anything that's progressive. Again, we may have reservations, but anything that sounds and looks progressive will have the attention of the majority of the people. Over the years, it's been difficult. Metrolinx has been a major factor over the years, as well as COVID, obviously, us just coming out of certain waves. So we want to see that the preservation of our community, and it's prior to COVID, it's been very difficult. We've seen many empty storefronts. And for us, we would like to know that overall businesses can still be there, thrive, and build where the next generation can economically contribute to our city as well.
Now, you said Metrolinx has been a factor in adversely affecting Little Jamaica in the West End of Toronto. How so?
Well, definitely parking has been one of the major issues. Traffic is another major. Habits are formed over the years of avoiding Eglinton altogether. Driving through traffic is not something anyone wants to go and experience. So avoiding that pocket of the city altogether has just been something that drivers have done over the years, and it's actually been seen now to affect business. It's been 11 years of construction, a long 11 years, and we'd like to see things progress. We'd like to see the customer base return. We'd like to see more foot traffic as other pockets of the city, where you don't see this major effect.
So if you can get some kind of cultural designation that turns that around and gets people coming back into the neighborhood, you're for it?
Definitely.
Gotcha. Okay, Amy Go, let me get some feedback from you. What do you think of the idea?
I think it's a good idea. As Chinese Canadians, I think it's about time that the city recognizes not only our history, our identity, our development, but also more importantly, as Jay said, the trauma and the racist context that we've been experiencing and still are experiencing in Canada and in Toronto as Chinese Canadians, as illustrated during COVID, the rise of anti-Asian racism. So the destination to me, of course, is a geographical, cultural district. However, I think it is that recognition and the impact as a whole on Chinese Canadian community, and recognizing that unique identity that we all share. That's more important.
Yeah, could you follow up on that, Amy? The recognition from whom of what?
So unfortunately, we are still in a hierarchical society where power, is rested not shared equitably. So we are, as Chinese Canadians, we are marginalized in terms of power. So that recognition that we are a community that has that unique identity and sharing of our experiences, our culture, and in the context of racism by the white dominant community, unfortunately, is still within, held within the white, community. That recognition is important. And by recognizing, we are hoping that it would then work towards, as Jay said, that addressing the disparities and the inequities that we are experiencing. And so the community's development will be grounded and centered on the marginalized communities and bring about that equity and that sharing of benefits that we, all Canadians, are entitled to, particularly those that are right now not experiencing that kind of equitable sharing.
All right, Jay, let me get you back in here.
Chime in.
I'm sorry, does somebody else want to get in there?
Yeah, I was going to say that I can agree where she's coming from. In fact, we see a lot of displacements of some of our communities when it comes to even housing. And in order to keep these communities the way they are as a community, housing is going to be a factor as well, too. They need places that are affordable, livable conditions. And where we see places for my community of Eglinton West, Lawrence Heights has been one of the major communities that supports us. And we see the development over there over the years of high-rise condos right beside Yorkdale Mall, and where you see some displacement of our communities as well, too. So it is definitely a major factor.
All right, Jay, let me get some better understanding from you as to how a neighborhood or a part of the city gets consideration, because we've talked about Little Jamaica, the Chinatown that's downtown, Geary Avenue, which is in the west end of the city, Church and Wellesley, that's the gay neighborhood, the gay community, and probably, I guess, one other place in Etobicoke, North York, and Scarborough, the sort of the old members of the former city of Toronto. They're also going to be on the list. Tell me why those places in particular are up for designation.
So again, Steve, advocates from those particular neighborhoods, especially Little Jamaica, the Gay Village, and Kensington Chinatown, have been in conversation with the city for several years. And so the city is responding to these communities. And in addition to redressing spatialized discrimination, I just want to use an asset-based lens to talk about the opportunity that we have here. So as a placemaker, we're not just disrupting displacement, we're bringing together tools that help us to co-create communities where everyone belongs. And so that means looking at things like housing, having great amenity spaces for everyone, making sure that we have active transportation and connectivity, ensuring that we have spaces for festivities and celebration. So making sure that we're really honoring the people who've invested their lifeblood in these communities. And so as these communities have increased in value, that they get to stay in their communities to benefit from the value that they actually sowed in those neighborhoods, along with people from other cultures as well. Because what we understand is that as one of the most culturally diverse cities in the entire world, we don't have neighborhoods that only have one demographic. So as we're looking at this program, we're creating an opportunity to redress some spatialized harm, to also celebrate things that are wonderful about these places, and then also to create the conditions for cultural harmony and also healthy and equitable cultural exchange.
Well, you've just prompted a question that I want to put to Mary, and that when you said not every neighborhood has a single identity, I mean, you're absolutely right, except that at some point, Mary, I mean, I've been around long enough to remember when the Danforth in Toronto wasn't called Greektown. And then suddenly one day, everybody started calling it Greektown, because I guess there's a lot of Greek restaurants, a lot of Greek culture, a lot of Greek residents, and so on. How does something like that happen? How does all of a sudden a neighborhood become known by one ethnicity over all the rest?
Well, it happens in a few ways. I mean, the Danforth is a very interesting example, and it's not unique in how our main streets host immigrant communities. Originally, at the turn of the century, the Danforth was English, Irish, and Scottish neighborhood, people at the businesses. And then as there was a great building boom in the city and the brickworks were coming into the East End, you had waves of Italian immigration. You actually had more Italian businesses and fruit and vegetable markets and cafes over time. It was always a mixed immigration society, though. But in the late 60s, there was quite a wave of Greek immigrants who came escaping political turmoil in Greece, and they became concentrated in that area and kind of took over a lot of the businesses that were associated with the Italian community, created their own, and then it became known as Little Athens informally, and then Greektown. A lot of the cultural kind of appellations we give in this city are largely through the business improvement associations. So there is something really importantly promotional about promoting an identity. But that's very different than what we're looking at for cultural districts, which is a lot more nuanced, I think, has a lot more understanding of the dynamics of culture.
And Jay, are you satisfied that in doing this, in saying, in order to promote Greek culture in that part of the city, that's worth doing, and it has a better return for the people in the area than those who may feel, well, I'm not Greek and I live in this neighborhood and my ethnicity is not going up on a sign? You think on balance it works?
So, Steve, just to build on what Mary said, this isn't really about promotion, and cultural districts don't get known to be associated with one culture overnight. It's generally speaking a process that is tethered to arrival, tethered to the establishment of small businesses, tethered to artistic expression, and tethered to mutual aid and community care networks. That's how cultural districts actually emerge over time, whether they are Greek or Jamaican or Italian. And so this program is following that comprehensive pattern that again emerges from the ground. And it is not about simple promotion. It is really about fostering culture, supporting culture, disrupting displacement as well. And so I just want to be so clear about that. It's not about promoting one culture over another culture. It really is about using a rigorous, comprehensive, asset-based, equitable placemaking lens to ensure that these communities have dignified and beautiful housing, that they have a thriving business network. We're also thinking about things like food security, leisure and play, intergenerational connections. And so we're using a very holistic, comprehensive lens that goes well beyond the language of promotion and well beyond sort of the BIA being the central partner. Although the BIA is a partner, but there are many more components in this program.
I get you. And I want to pick up on one word that you used in that answer, and that was displacement. And Sheldon, I'm going to call a bit of an audible here. Can we go to the bottom of page 3? Because I want to talk about downtown Chinatown. And Amy, I'll get you in here for that. Not everybody's going to remember this because you got to go back a bit. But the Chinatown where it is today wasn't always there, right? I mean, it used to be where New City Hall is. And then I guess it got displaced. And people moved further west to the Spadina and Dundas area. Can you take us through some of the history of that evolution?
Absolutely. In fact, Chinese Canadian community started with the arrival of Chinese railway workers. After the building of the railway, they were shunned by Canada. So some of them landed in Toronto. So they started around Union Station, around Adelaide, and continued to grow in spite of the head tax imposed on Chinese throughout 1885 to 1923. And then the community continued to grow and move north, and where they actually moved into an area where the Jewish immigrants were settling in the Ward district of the city, which is around Elizabeth and Dundas Street, where the City Hall right now is. And so starting in the 50s, City Hall actually pushed the communities out of this area and moved them west. And so the whole story of Chinatown and the development and the displacement and the movement actually is a story about, resilience, strength, community support, and community development. And so, echoing what Jay said, it is that strong, that strength, that actually put the community through all the years of challenges from the time that Chinese landed, in spite of all the hardships, including stripping them of license or attempting to strip them of their license to businesses, barring them from hiring white workers, and all the limitations, including present day, high scrutiny of the, for example, the massage parlors by the city licensing department, all the targeted, I would call discriminatory actions, and of course the support to the community from the business all the way to, of course, the philanthropic side, the volunteer side, the nonprofit, the advocates, and the artists, and everybody working together. So that is the story that we want to tell. That is the narrative of Canada and Toronto, of communities working together in spite of hardship, in spite of racism.
Well, let me do a fast...
Isn't that a good story to tell?
I was just going to say, Amy, that the attempts to discriminate and to keep the Chinese community down obviously didn't work, because downtown Chinatown's phenomenal. And, it's only one of how many Chinatowns across Toronto? It's got to be 4 or 5 of them, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely. Continue, with the Broadview, Broadview Girard area, the, Scarborough area, the Markham and Richmond Hill. And again, this is because the Chinese Canadian community continue to grow, right? There are still newcomers and immigrants while coming from all over the world, settling in different parts of Canada and, of course, the GTA. At the same time, of course, we also have the 4th, 5th generation Canadians who have had long history, family history in Canada. So all these communities coming together wherever they are. But regardless, I think the story is the same. That strong identity and heritage and that strong of belonging is where we all want to strive for and all we want to achieve.
All right, let's turn our lens to Chosen right now and talk about Little Jamaica. And to start with, Chosen, would you tell us a bit about your business, Treasure Isle? What do you guys do?
Well, Treasure Isle was originally started as a music store. It was started here by a Canadian reggae artist by the name of Nana McQueen. She was on a record label in Jamaica known as Treasure Isle, and she decided to open up the label here in Canada. It started as a record store and evolved over the years. Now we're a cultural hub for Jamaican, Caribbean, and African clientele. We sell natural health products as well as music and entertainment for the people of Toronto.
Now, the answer to this is going to be obvious, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because that's what I do. I ask obvious questions. It's not spelled treasure, T-R-E-A-S-U-R-E. It's treasure, T-R-E-A-J-A-H. How come?
Well, originally it was Treasure Isle. That was the record label. The second owner, Nat TV, actually had changed the name to Trade Jah. It's a play on words, Jah being a name of God for the Rastafarian community. So we treasure God. So it's a play on words.
Fabulous. And Sheldon, I know you brought the picture up for a second. Bring it up again if you can, just so we can see. There it is right there on the right-hand side of the shot. That's the record store. And maybe just while you've got the floor here, Chosen, tell us a bit about the evolution of Little Jamaica, when it might have started, how it's evolved over the years.
Little Jamaica has been around from early 70s. There's been stores, cultural hubs for many years. A lot of immigrants from Jamaica coming to Toronto. Eglinton being that hub, a place where you would actually come and you can get some good food, great music. You can get your hair cut, get your hair supplies. It's been like this for many years. The involvement over the years contributed to some of our biggest festivals in the city, like Caravana, and hosting many events on Eglinton for our community and giving people access to just a little bit of taste of Jamaica itself. It's actually known in Jamaica. A lot of Jamaicans know about Little Jamaica here in Toronto.
And in your estimation, based on your experience over the years, do you think Little Jamaica has its share of amenities and public services comparable to other neighborhoods?
In my opinion, we could use more. I mean, we need to work more with the BIA. We need more access. And my friend had mentioned this again with the Asian community as well. We need that identification. They need to know that we're here, and that we need to thrive as well too. Again, 11 years of Metrolinx, we haven't seen much help. COVID has actually been more help to our community than actually 11 years of Metrolinx. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we need to come to a table and come to this agreement together.
So let's, Jay, do the specific question about this specific neighborhood. If it gets the cultural designation that we've been talking about, how would that help Little Jamaica be more than what it is now?
So one of the important things that it will do is to not only acknowledge not only Jamaican culture, but Black culture in the way that it shaped the neighborhood. It will acknowledge Black people with Black culture, because we have a tendency to celebrate Black culture without celebrating Black people. The other thing that, going back to your question, Steve, that you asked Chosen about amenities, we know that in a lot of neighborhoods like Little Jamaica, there is amenity inequity in terms of park space and infrastructure that supports active transportation and those types of things. And so that's very important as well. Again, using not only a cultural lens, but a place-based lens and a placemaking lens as well. And we know that when we are talking about contributing and co-developing better amenities in communities, when you use a place-based approach, what happens is that everybody in the neighborhood benefits, right? Like having new parks and new green spaces and wider streets and safe streets. These kinds of things benefit absolutely everyone in a particular planning area. And so that's really important. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that we also have to recognize indigeneity in this work. So as we're talking about, honoring and celebrating, new arrivals and settlers, and to be clear, people who are of African descent are not settlers in the same way as other individuals who've settled here, because many of us are descended of people who came here not by free will and who were brought here in shackles. But nonetheless, it's critically important to ensure that this process also really recognizes and honors Indigenous peoples and Indigenous places as well. And so if we get Little Jamaica right, what we'll be doing is centering the contributions of Black community members and other equity deserving groups, such as unhoused people, other racialized groups, Indigenous peoples, mothers, children, our elders. And so this is a great strategy for absolutely everyone.
And Mary, just in our last minute here, maybe you could put a bow on this. Is the thinking here that if various neighborhoods get this cultural designation, it will give them at City Hall, I don't know what, a better claim to some of those amenities that Jay and Chosen just listed? Is that part of the thinking here?
Yeah, part of the thinking would be if you understand what communities need, and as you are planning for them, and as change is rapidly happening in this city, you can see those opportunities and you can ensure that you're listening to what communities believe they need, not what City Hall thinks people should have. And that will help to sustain those communities. One thing that's really interesting about what is happening in this conversation is we are talking about groups who have been marginalized, who have been pushed off land, who have been moved away and moved out. And what a cultural district can potentially do is to keep those roots in the ground.
Gotcha.
Yes. And Mary, in addition to what Mary said, again, I want to really use an asset-based lens here. It's not just about need. It's about community strength, community power, and community magic. And that's really important as well, to use an asset-based lens to understand that this is not strictly about addressing need, because this is not going to be a stigmatized program. This is recognizing contributions and power.
We're all about the magic here, Jay. We love to hear that. Let me just do one last thing before we leave and answer the burning question that so many of our viewers now have. Yes, Amy Go and Avi Go, who's been a guest on this program many times, yes, they are sisters. For the record, we just thought we'd say that. Thanks, you four. We appreciate you being on our program tonight. Take good care.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye.
Canada just got its first ever independent medical school. Originally a joint initiative between Laurentian and Lakehead universities, it will henceforth be known as the Northern Ontario School of Medicine University, NOSM University for short. It is simultaneously celebrating its 20-year anniversary, educating doctors with patients in the North in mind. Sarita Verma is the Dean, Vice Chancellor, President, and CEO of the school, and she joins us now from Sudbury, Ontario for more. And even before you and I begin this conversation, I got to do two things here in the interests, Madam President, of full disclosure. Number one, I used to be the Chancellor at Laurentian University, with which your institution used to have a relationship. I'm no longer the Chancellor. You no longer have that relationship, but we put that on the record. And also, my wife, who's a health policy consultant, has provided advice to your institution as well, so we put that on the record in the interests of full disclosure as well. Anything else you think I need to disclose while we're at it here, or am I okay so far?
Well, only that I have to disclose that I'm a huge fan and have followed the agenda with Steve Paikin for a long time. So, I am a little biased.
I don't think that constitutes a conflict of interest or a full disclosure necessity, but thanks for saying it anyway. Okay, to the back on the path here, and that is, you were once, as we suggested in the introduction, affiliated with two universities, now a standalone institution. How come?
Well, when NOSM was created, it didn't have the degree granting authority. It actually was an institution that was a government strategy, a not-for-profit corporation that had no way legally of granting degrees. The original thought was to actually base NOSM at Laurentian, but the North being as interestingly political and need-oriented, the Northeast and the Northwest came together to collaborate and create a joint degree at Laurentian and Lakehead. In February last year, the Laurentian University declared its insolvency, and as a result, NOSM found itself in a fairly precarious financial situation. And as a result, we actually explored many options, but the rapid escalation to becoming Canada's first independent medical university seemed like the most reasonable and the best one. It wasn't an easy journey, but we got there.
Well, that's the thing I wanted to figure out. Was it precipitated by the implosion that took place at Laurentian?
Yes, it was. And I think that's an important thing to clear up, because there was some sense that there were all kinds of plans leading up to this. Listen, I only got here in July 2019. I don't think within 6 months I would have been able to, even if I am a magician, get to that point. I would say that the natural history might be that in the course of the next couple of decades, it might have achieved that. But the reality was things were pretty stable until Laurentian became insolvent. And what that meant, Steve, was that we were just going through the second only accreditation by the National Committee of our medical doctorate degree, which is the foundation and the cornerstone of our institution. And many of the standards of accreditation look for financial sustainability. Half of our degree was in trouble, and we had to look for solutions. We did have the opportunity of looking at other institutions and partnering with them, but you know what? We thought, nothing ventured, nothing gained, and we went for the moonshot, and we got it.
Well, I have to say, you got it in really quick time, because I've seen in the past, for example, when Ryerson started as a polytechnical institute and wanted to become a university, these things can take years and years and years before the government gives you the green light. Why do you figure you got it so quickly?
I think because we're already superb. We had already proven our mettle as a really strong institution, as a positive and a very successful government strategy. And in fact, we have produced physicians in the short 15 years that we've been graduating people, even though we've been around for 20 years, but it takes, a year to introduce and 4 years of training before the first class graduates. So we have been producing physicians, over 800 physicians to date, of which if they stay to do their residency, almost 90% of them stay in Northern Ontario. That's number one success. Number two, we're innovative. We're known for social accountability. And we were also leading the world when it came to social accountable medical education. What does that mean, you say? Well, number two success, our physicians are competent and very confident to work in rural, remote settings, including First Nations settings. That's a huge success. And number three, we produce physicians who are change makers. They aren't there just to graduate and go into their, own profession and their own business. They actually are leaders in society. Number three, success. So the government saw that we were already on a very significant trajectory. They escalated it. I'm sure it was pretty fast, but it certainly helps to have been a lawyer trained at the University of Ottawa and a physician trained at McMaster. So those two sides of my brain worked very well to get us to where we are now.
I take your point on all of that, but I guess what our viewers and listeners really want to know is there any difference to the students that you are eventually graduating to become doctors in the North? Is there any difference to them, the fact that you're now an independent institution as opposed to aligned with two others?
I think for our students, it's been actually pretty seamless, although they're pretty chuffed and quite excited to have their own NOSM University. We had the chant NOSM U in 22, and the students got quite excited about it. But for their own learning, it's been completely seamless. And in fact, for their degree, they often saw themselves, in fact, all of them saw themselves as graduate of NOSM rather than Laurentian or Lakehead. And their degrees did say Laurentian and Lakehead, but for the purposes of the licensure, et cetera, it usually said Northern Ontario School of Medicine. So we're actually sure that from their perspective, notwithstanding the excitement and the pride that they have, the reality is for their learning, for their education, for their transformative journey to becoming a physician, it was completely seamless.
How many new doctors are you going to graduate this spring?
Well, this spring, in about a month, I will be attending 2 convocations, as is the last joint degree, and there will be approximately 60 physicians. We usually have a class of 64, but we have a couple of people on leave. And so 60 physicians will be graduating this spring. And excitingly, we also, the same time we heard we were going to be proclaimed, we also received an expansion of the medical programs. So we'll be adding 30 more positions to our MD program and graduating about 94, plus we have 5. So we're going to get close to 100 in the next couple of years. And of course, we're going to be adding 41 positions to our residency programs. Those are the guys who actually have to do training after their MD. And to go into practice, we'll be graduating another 100 over the next few years per year.
This is the thing I was trying to figure out, because, post-secondary institutions all over this province are really having a hard time getting more money out of government these days. There are a lot of priorities, particularly during a global pandemic. And I guess I want to know how you manage to get more money for more spaces at a time when there seems to be so much contraction elsewhere.
You know, Steve, the most amazing thing about Northern Ontario, as a Southerner who came here and have experienced the joy, the wonder, and the absolute love that the people have for NOSM, is that almost every municipality wrote directly to Premier Ford and advocated. Every city council passed a motion and sent it to the Premier. The voices of Northern Ontario were quite insistent, persistent, and consistent. And they said, expand NOSM. The opportunities for Northerners to get medical education and training in health professions were still limited. We have about 2,000 applications for, at the time, 64 spots, a 3% success rate. By advocating for expansion, the municipalities, the people of Northern Ontario said, we want more. So we almost doubled our MD program and we doubled our residency. This is as a result directly of the people of Northern Ontario and, frankly, this government listening to them.
Well, I'm going to go back at you on this one again, because when the Liberals were in power, there was a cabinet minister in Sault Ste. Marie, they had a cabinet minister in Thunder Bay, they had a cabinet minister in Sudbury. So there was a lot of clout at the cabinet table to advocate for you. To the best of my knowledge, the Conservatives have no seats in Sudbury, they have no seats in Thunder Bay. So why do you think they went ahead with this, even though, you know, at the moment, there's no political gain for them?
You know, there are a couple of factors. First of all, I think I will say the healthcare needs of Northern Ontario are actually pretty compelling. And they've always been that case, particularly in First Nations communities where the social determinants of health are quite challenging. That said, you can't ignore the fact that the pandemic had a significant impact on healthcare. We not only faced the burnout of healthcare professionals, but a real crisis when it came to the delivery of healthcare, including a crisis of nurses. And the reality is that healthcare in Northern Ontario means that by all indices, chronic disease, mental health and addictions, you know, the opioid crisis is 3 times worse than it is anywhere else in the province. You just can't ignore it. As we sit here today, Steve, Northern Ontario is short of 326 physicians. That's 120 family physicians right now, and well over 180 specialists and subspecialists. We need to increase not only the production of physicians and all healthcare providers, but also recruitment and retention in the north. And if we don't solve these problems, the health of the community really severely affects the wealth of the community. And the economy of Northern Ontario is a driver for Ontario. Forestry, mining, and many other areas are actually really important foundational pillars for Ontario. So whether you like it or not, I'm not sure what was driving the government, but you couldn't ignore it. The bathtub was 9/10 full, and now it's spilling over with need.
Gotcha. I know that every other post-secondary institution in the province has been told by the government of Ontario, you have to freeze your tuition again. And this is 3 straight years that tuition is now being frozen. Were you told to do that as well?
Yes, all institutions have a frozen tuition.
And how has that affected you?
That is a difficult environment. Well, listen, you know, one of the things that NOSM University can do now that we're emancipated is that we can actually re-envision not only the business model, but the value proposition for universities. These are fairly desperate financial institutions. As people will know, Laurentian got into some difficulty, partly because they become addicted to enrollment expansion and to high-cost programs that rely heavily on duration-based degrees. Does society really look for that anymore, or has actually the revolution, particularly the digital revolution in healthcare, changed the way that we do business? So NOSM University already, by all comparators, if you look at the Council of Ontario Finance Officers data, we're actually leaner and more efficient than all other institutions in Ontario. And we intend to set that pace and lead in that regard. We actually see ourselves as being highly distributed, but with innovative models and a return on investment. Good Lord, a university is going to say return on investment. What is the return on investment? Is the number of people you graduate, or is it the number of scholarships that you, like the amount of scientific discovery that you actually publish? No, those aren't the metrics. The metrics are, when those people graduate, do they get jobs? Do they go into areas where they make a difference? Do they lead society? Does the scholarship actually make change? Do the publications and research actually lead to curing disease? Those are the things that NOSM University aspires to do. We aspire to transform health education and lead in that regard. And I'm not being Pollyanna. I actually believe it can be done. Today, for example, in your business, Steve, people used to be able to do long form journalistic articles and do deep research and create several pages for a newspaper. Now we're training journalists to get small bits of information and post it on social media. That's the transformation we need to go from duration-based degrees to actually just-in-time learning, and not just-in-case learning, but just-in-time learning, and not just learning anywhere, but learning everywhere.
No, I get you. And part of that transformation of the post-secondary system in this province has been, we're taking far more foreign students than ever before, in part because thankfully they want to come here, and in part because they pay a lot more tuition than somebody who's born and raised in the province of Ontario. So I guess I want to know from you whether foreign students are making up an increasingly large part of your student body as well.
No, not at all. We exist for Northern Ontario, and our goal will be to continue to recruit from Northern Ontario. 90% of our students come from Northern Ontario. Our primary mandate is to meet the healthcare research and education needs of Northern Ontario. And as much as that would be relatively interesting for us, our partnerships might be in graduate educations, but not in the MD program. And certainly in our residencies, we'd be looking to increase the opportunities for international medical graduates who are Canadian citizens and permanent residents who are here in Canada who would like to access licensure in health professions in Canada. Those are things that we would like to be able to explore with the government and with policy to change. But in terms of foreign students, other than graduate programs, we're not looking to expand in that area. That's an ethical discussion as well. You know, what is the purpose of those programs, and is it revenue generation, or is it high quality education for other countries that returns those graduates to those countries? Those are big ethical discussions that we have yet to have.
Indeed. All right, let's talk about, I really want to get a better sense about how the rubber hits the road in Northern Ontario in terms of the numbers of doctors you're able to send into the community and what impact they're able to have. And I'll just give you a little personal anecdote from my own experience here. You know, my mother-in-law, when she was alive, lived in Sudbury, Ontario, and always had trouble getting in to see her GP. That was just the reality. There are a shortage of doctors everywhere, particularly Northern Ontario, and I know you're trying to graduate more docs into the community who can alleviate that backlog. The question is it really happening? Is it easier to get to see a doctor in the north today as a result of NOSM being there for 20 years?
I think in some places it is, Steve. In Sudbury, for sure, there are well over 70 doctors here that weren't here before. And the same in Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, Timmins, North Bay. But in the smaller rural communities, that's not the case. We have a lot more work to do. And, many communities, such as you may have heard, Red Lake, are in crisis. Red Lake, Thessalon, Sioux Lookout, they've had to close emergency rooms. There are places where you can't see a doctor. You can't access healthcare unless you travel for many hours. That's precarious for people who are in health crisis. So we have a lot more work to do. We are introducing some new ideas. We're building a rural generalist pathway that actually helps people come out of rural communities and go back to rural communities. We have not been successful in graduating, although we've graduated well over 50 self-identified Indigenous physicians, we have not been successful in getting them into First Nations communities. So as I said, our work here has only just begun. It takes more than 15 years of graduates and 20 years being in place to get it done. But frankly, becoming our own independent university gives us that flexibility. Prior to this, we would have been relatively locked down in Sudbury and Thunder Bay, but now we plan to be regionalized and pan-northern.
Can I just follow up on that thing you just said about graduating First Nations physicians, but being unsuccessful in getting them into their own communities? What does that mean?
Well, I think one of the challenges is that the medical institution is only half of the job. Half of the job is educating people, preparing them for practice, and then once they graduate, they're free agents. And where they go to practice and what their practice remuneration models are like, what the practice environment is like, what the hospitals offer them, what the communities offer them in terms of schooling, housing, jobs for their families, etc. Those are all elements that we don't have much control over. And if I was to say anything to Northern Ontario or to those communities that are in desperate need of physicians or nurse practitioners or health providers, is this: you need to do your part of the bargain, which is you need to create an environment in which people want to come live there and work there. And part of that involves actually providing them with the infrastructure they need. Employers need to make it attractive for people who want to come and buy houses, settle in those communities, and actually provide jobs for their trailing spouses. Those are things that NOSM University advocates for, but doesn't have much control over. Also the models of remuneration for rural, remote Ontario are really in need of a major overhaul. The government in the latest physician services agreement did recognize elements of that with the what's called the RNPGA model. But listen, what your viewers want to know is this: why would somebody want to come and practice in Northern Ontario? Well, frankly, it's less expensive, the lifestyle is fantastic, and the working environment is really superb, unparalleled, but it's tough. It's a really hard environment. You can often be isolated, so it takes a unique personality. That's the person that we're recruiting to NOSM University, and give us some time. We'll be successful.
Well, let me follow up on that angle, because I don't know whether you've had a chance to follow up with any of your graduates during the course of COVID, but I wonder how many have said to you, holy smokes, I can't, I'm on the verge of burning out. I just never thought it would be this tough. Do you know how many people you've lost who have just decided to throw in the towel because, you know, when it's happening south of the French River too, of course, there's lots of burnout going on out there among medical professionals. What are you hearing?
I'm hearing that it's actually much worse in Northern Ontario because of the isolation and because of the fact that often you're the only physician or one of three physicians. One of you might actually have tested positive for COVID. One of you is coming off being on call for 48 hours and you're going on call, and you are it in this small emergency room in Wawa. You're the obstetrician, you're the critical care doctor, you're the emergency doctor, and you're the surgical assist, or you're the person who's actually doing the surgery, and you've got a room full of people who need to be cared for. So yes, I would say we're predicting a significant burnout and a big physician retirement as a result of pandemic-induced exhaustion. And to be honest, it's also pretty hard to be in a profession which has become one of the most dangerous professions in the world, right? Your risk of getting COVID and potentially getting it very badly and significantly is high. And the fear factor, COVID anxiety is not an insignificant issue. So the general data in Canada shows that 42%, maybe even up to 50% of physicians are currently burnt out. In Northern Ontario, one of our studies, it wasn't recent in the last couple of years, but certainly, just as the pandemic was coming on, showed us that 50% of our doctors would retire in the next 5 years. Might be worse as a result of the pandemic. So, hey, we've got to get going with our job.
Well, speaking of getting going, we got to get going too. But I do have one last question in our last 30 seconds, and that is, how long do you plan to stay on the job, and what do you want to make sure happens before you leave it?
Well, when I came here, my unanticipated, of course, didn't think within 6 months there would be a pandemic, and within 7 months there would be a insolvency of half of our degree program. So number one, rescue the institution and make it into a university. Check. Number 2, expand the medical school positions so that we can expand accessibility for Northerners to higher education and to medical education. Check. Number 3, attain financial sustainability for the institution. I would say I'm in the middle of getting there. We're negotiating with government, but we're also negotiating with Laurentian and Lakehead. They jointly hold about $30 million of our endowments, and those are intended for NOSM University students. We'd like that back, please. And we'd like to raise money. If anyone's listening and they're prepared to give us an opportunity to support us, we would be very interested in a large endowment to make us, essentially, we aspire to be tuition free for our students. Our students are not coming from rich families. So yes, raising money, getting there, not quite a check. And then finally, my first term ends in 2 years, and I am really excited. I've fallen in love with Northern Ontario, so my goal would be to establish sustainable succession planning to make sure that Northerners for Northerners, and actually the sustainability of Northern education and research leads us into becoming the most powerful consortium in Ontario for education.
So if there is a Jane Doe listening who's got $50 million burning a hole in her pocket, you're happy to name the school after her if she gives you that money?
Listen, I mean, the University of Toronto changed their name to Temerity Faculty of Medicine, I think for the right value proposition. But listen, it's not about me and it's not about the institution. It's about the kids. We have kids whose debt load is 3 times more than it is in any other person. They don't come from rich families. They come from Northern Ontario with the average income of $80,000 per year. And they have to have a significant, their debt is close to $250,000. If we can actually help these kids and make sure that we balance out and flatten the socioeconomic status of people coming into medicine, I would be delighted to talk to anybody who'd like to approach us. Please do.
They know where to find you. That's Sarita Verma, President, Vice Chancellor, Dean, CEO of the Northern Ontario School of Medicine University, NOSM University, as it's now called. Thanks for joining us on the agenda tonight. And that is the agenda for Tuesday, April 12, 2022. Tomorrow, we'll hear from Canada's top diplomat, trying to make a difference in Russia's disgraceful war against Ukraine, our ambassador to the United Nations, Bob Ray. I'm Steve Paikin. Thanks for watching TVO, for joining us online at tvo.org, and we'll see you again tomorrow.